Hello folks, and welcome to this review, my first date with the 2022 Royal Enfield Himalayan. Now I guess the first thing I have to address is the pronunciation of the word Himalayan. Now I'm based in the UK and the British pronunciation is officially Himalayan as opposed to Himalayan, and that's what I'll be sticking with for the rest of the video. I've been looking forward to trying this bike for quite a while, so thanks to Frasers of Gloucester for the opportunity for taking one out for a little spin. Now this video is a bit different to my previous reviews in that due to some technical issues on the ride, this will be a voiceover style review rather than my usual on the bike approach. First impressions were slightly spoiled by a stall just after the first start, but it ticked over okay after the second attempt. There's no choke on this model now, but I presume there is a fast idle warm-up circuit. Now there has been a lot of coverage about this bike over the years, and I have my preconceived ideas, many of them. I didn't expect to have much hope for acceleration from a standing start with this bike, but just here the initial acceleration was better than I expected. One of the initial little disappointments about the bike was the quality of the mirrors. The glass and the quality of the reflection is not very good. The image is not consistent across the glass, it's a bit warped, and it uses a magnification factor that is unusual for other bikes in the UK market anyway. I'd recommend replacing those mirrors pretty much as soon as you got the bike. One thing I was pleased to see were individual instrument lights for the indicators. On some low budget bikes you just get one warning light for both indicators, and I hate that. One thing I could test early on is the bike's performance in the Traffic Light Grand Prix. It pulled away decently enough and it would keep ahead of most traffic as long as they weren't trying too hard. The bike gets to 50 miles an hour okay. Yeah, it takes a little longer to get itself to 60. In terms of the controls, the levers are not span adjustable. The clutch releases about halfway along its travel and is fine. The clutch has a nice engagement and it feels ever so slightly longer than many bikes that I've ridden in the past, and that makes for a smooth pull away from a standstill. I like the gear change action too. There's a nice mechanical snick to the change, and I hope it doesn't get sloppier in time. Don't go changing, gearbox. There were surprisingly no vibrations to speak of on the handlebars at this point early on in the ride, but as the ride continued I did feel a bit of tingling appearing around about the 3000-4000 RPM mark at various points of the bike. Maybe enough to send some parts of you asleep if you keep the bike at those revs. Certainly there are some vibrations if I squeeze a fuel tank with my legs, which is probably not a very recommended thing to do anyway, but there were no vibrations that I could notice in the foot pegs. I found the seat to be comfortable, it had a nice bit of squish or give, and is reasonably wide too. I want to talk about the riding position for a little bit, but I feel a little bit silly as this bike is so well reviewed already. But everybody's different, people come with different expectations, experience levels, and so hopefully I can add something useful to the wealth of knowledge about this bike. For the record, I'm 5'7" tall, that's 170 centimeters, with a 32-inch inside leg, and I find the riding position to be comfortable. I'm sitting upright, my lower legs are swept back slightly. It was a nice natural reach to the handlebars too. I found that at a standstill I could get both feet firmly flat-footed on the ground, which was actually quite an impressive discovery. I actually thought I would struggle a little bit to get my feet flat on the ground on this bike because as the ride went on I felt that the seat was just cutting a little bit into the backs of my thighs. But as it turned out, I got my feet flat on the ground easily, and my fears that the seat was actually going to splay out my legs were unfounded. You'll see that I do a little bit of standing up on the bike later on as well. While braking for a junction at one point during the ride, I was going down the gearbox at the same time and the back wheel stepped out due to the combination of the engine braking and lack of tyre grip. Remember, these aren't pure road tyres, they are somewhat off-road biased, and the bike also had less than 100 miles on the clock, so the tyres were pretty new. Now in this sort of situation, ABS isn't going to help you. If it happens to you, you can feather the clutch at the lever to help try and keep it under control. Yes, you are the slipper clutch. There is nothing wrong with this behaviour, by the way, once you expect it. This is how many bikes behaved back in the day, before slipper clutches were commonplace. Now, at a gentle pace, this bike is very comfortable. I haven't got much experience with 21-inch front wheel bikes, and so for me, when I apply a little bit of opposite lock to get the bike through a bend, the feel is a little bit alien. It's like the bike starts to lean in, and then there's a bit of a delay before the front wheel follows the rest of the bike. I think it's something you're either already used to, or you get to understand pretty quickly if 21-inch front wheels are new to you too. And there's likely a lot of people out there that might not seriously consider an Indian-built motorbike. But the facts are that Harley-Davidson, KTM and Yamaha, among others, all have production lines in India, so location is not necessarily an indicator of quality. Will the bike be reliable? Well, the Himalayan's reputation for quality wasn't great early on, but things have improved a lot with several revisions over the years. Bike also comes with 3 years warranty and 3 years roadside assistance in the UK, so that's not to be sniffed at for the price. It does seem that the importers have faith that this bike's not going to sink them. The bike is a little bit jerky, trying to hold a constant throttle in first gear at 5 miles an hour. At 10 to 15 miles an hour in first, it's pretty good. That's well behaved coming on and off the throttle. And what I found is, even if you accidentally give the throttle a bit of a clumsy twist, the lack of power actually translates to a smooth acceleration, which was surprising and impressive. The 21-inch front wheel rolls through potholes and sunken drains and manhole covers in a better way than more expensive bikes with smaller diameter front wheels. Quite a nice experience for somebody not used to a big front wheel. Acceleration is somewhat sedate, takes time to build up speed, and that's not like a lot of other bikes with a similar weight because they generally have more power. It's a different way of riding. One way to describe it is that the bike's about as quick as the average car up to legal limits. Spend more time enjoying where you are, if indeed you have some nice scenery to look at. The bike comes with the Tripper turn-by-turn navigation unit, aside from the compass, which pairs with the appropriate Royal Enfield app. I'm afraid that I did not have the app on my phone, and in this case what that means is the time on the Tripper display will be incorrect until the device is paired. I took the bike down to about 2,500 RPM in top gear, which is 5th gear, and I gave the throttle a good tug. It complained a little bit, there's a little bit of vibration through the bike, but it did pull. So despite the lack of overall power, the engine is relatively torquey, and I suspect once run in, it could tolerate low revs without too much complaint. I did actually find that the engine has a bit of a spurt of power at around about 5,000 RPM, but the low miles on the bike meant I didn't want to try it too often on the day. There aren't many bikes, if any, that I ride nowadays that stall. Unexpected stalling isn't really acceptable, but sadly it did happen overall a couple of times on this ride. I've just left a petrol station in this clip, and I'd put 9 litres or 2 gallons worth of fuel in the tank. The tank capacity is 15 litres, and I went from just about empty on the gauge to full. So perhaps the gauge is not entirely trustworthy. However, it would take a longer ride than this one to really suss that out. Now I did take the bike off-road for a little while, just over grass really, and I even did a little bit of standing up. Now I'm very much a novice when it comes to off-road riding, so please bear that in mind. I can't comment too much other than to say changing gear standing up was not too much trouble. Again, that big front wheel came into its own when rolling through dips in the ground too. Overall, the Himalayan inspired confidence on this, the most basic adventure ever. Now let's rattle through some specs. We have a single cylinder 4-stroke air cooled engine. It has got an oil cooler though. 411cc, single overhead cam with 2 valves. We have a 9.5 to 1 compression ratio, and the engine spitting out 24.3 bhp or 17.88 kilowatts at 6,500 rpm. Torque rating 32 newton meters or 23.6 foot-pounds of torque at 4,250 rpm approximately. We have a wet multi-plate clutch, fuel injection, electric start, and a 5-speed gearbox. The tyre sizes are 90-90-21 at the front and a 120-90 17-inch at the back. The front suspension is a right way up forks, as you can see, 41mm diameter with 200mm travel. non-adjustable, and the rear shock is a 5-way preload adjustable with 180mm of travel. The seat height is 800mm or 31.5 inches. The wheelbase is 1465mm or 57.7 inches just about. And finally the wet weight, the curb weight, 199 kilos or just under 439 pounds. While we look at the lights, I forgot to mention the brakes. The front disc 300mm diameter with a 2-piston floating caliper. The rear disc is 240mm diameter with a 1-piston floating caliper. Last few thoughts while walking around the bike here. Yes, clearly this bike is built down to budget, but it's that low admission price that will help people get onto the road on 2 wheels on the type of bike that they perhaps thought was beyond their means. Later on then, if you feel the need to improve any aspects of the bike, you can do it in your own time and when your budget allows. One thing I did struggle with a little bit is turbulence coming from the screen. At about 40 miles an hour it's okay for me, but between about 50 and 60 miles per hour it became a bit of an issue. Your mileage may vary depending on your body shape and size and riding position. And in any case, aftermarket screens are available if you're willing to go for the effort and expense of finding one that works for you. Time for a brake test. Now, there's not a lot of power in the front brake. Even with a good squeeze, the retardation is gradual. Not bad news off the road, but not brilliant news on the road. Now, if you use both brakes at the same time, then it slows sufficiently well. They are the definition of okay. Okay now, any other business. The ride is a little bit bouncy. Not really in a bad way. It doesn't wallow. It's quick to react to the surface underneath it, at least on the road, but it does feel a little bit springy rather than plush. I think that's a trade-off to get good control off-road. It's a budget bike though, and as a compromise it works well enough on the road. It's the 199 kilograms wet weight really that concerns me a bit as a potential buyer of a lightweight, middleweight adventure bike. I tend to ride alone, and if I go off-road and drop this bike several times in one day, picking it up each time is really going to take it out of me. The weight off-road would be less of a concern if you're riding with someone to back you up and help you get out of sticky situations. Lighter bikes like the BMW G310 GS, the Honda CRF 300 Rally and the KTM Adventure 390 would make more sense, to be honest. But they're all more expensive. I found that the bike responds happily to a clutchless upshift in the old school styly, even between first and second. It was a good action there, but I didn't actually try a clutchless downshift. I don't foresee any problems, but I can't comment on it because I never did it. So overall, this bike is quite a bit less agricultural than I expected, which is really a pleasant discovery. And if you're under the impression that Royal Enfield were basically like a bag of bolts, then I urge you to take them for a test ride. While I'm talking of test rides, I'd like to thank James and Luke from Frasers of Gloucester for allowing me out on their demo bike, and by all means get in touch with them if you'd like to have a go and find out for yourself what the bike is like. At the time of recording they also have the Interceptor 650 and the Meteor 350 available to ride, and I think the Scram 411 is coming too, but don't quote me on that. The bike is simple, it's cheap and it works. With that as a starting point and a change of mindset for me that'd be required, where I'd spend more time enjoying the journey rather than concentrating on getting to the destination, and after considering some mods to make the bike suit my own preferences, I can imagine building quite a nice bond with this machine. The kind of things I'd like to add would be hand guards, heated grips, crash bars for the engine, probably an upgraded headlight, a whole LED replacement headlight unit because I do like my LED headlights, and or additional spotlights. But I think I'd have to check out what output the alternator manages before I start bolting on lots of electric accessories. Downsides? Well, there's no glaring issues or annoyances to me anyway. The lack of power is something that for some people, certainly me being one of them, would require a change of attitude and approach to riding in general in order to enjoy this bike on the road. And so yes, I think I'd like a second date. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful, and if you did, I really appreciate it if you could press that like button for me. I have many more motorbike reviews on my channel under my first dates playlist. And you'll also find me doing other things related to two wheels, such as track days, vlogging videos, breaking things in my shed, and hopefully some more off-road fun and games in the future. So if that sounds interesting, please hit the subscribe button and press that notification bell icon too, so you know when I've published a new vid. For my regular viewers and subscribers, please let me know what you think of this new approach where I've done a voiceover video rather than talking while riding. To be honest with you, this approach was forced on me by some technical problems with my gear along the ride, but I'll be interested to hear what you think. In any case, hopefully I'll see you folks down in the comments, and until next time, take care of yourselves. Ta-da!